Gentleman from Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today's hearing highlights exactly what American taxpayers hate about the federal government. Ms. Tighe, isn't it true that last year there were $144 billion in overpayments, or excuse me, improper payments across the government? Isn't that accurate?
That sounds accurate.
Yeah, and the trend is up, right? So that number's been growing.
Yes.
Growing over the last 4 years.
Yes.
And one of the most egregious agencies that is part of that overall number is the guy sitting beside you, the Department of Education. Is that correct?
Well, it's not
in the top 5, right?
I think top 5.
Yeah, top 5. And the trend is the same with them. Overpayments have been increasing over the last several years. Is that right?
Yes, certainly this past year.
Yeah, in the direct loan and in the Pell Grant areas, they've both been trending up. And you sent them a letter where you said something like it was a management, they had improper payments at the department were a management challenge. Is that right? You sent a letter to them?
That's correct.
Yeah, and it basically said they weren't complying with the law, right? This IPERA law?
Correct.
Yeah, so $144 billion across government. One of the most egregious agencies within that $144 billion is the Department of Education. Their trend is up. You sent them a letter saying, hey, get your act together. You're not even complying with the law, right? That's all that's true?
Yes.
And 3 weeks ago, we had a hearing, and we find out that in the direct loan program, they had to shut down their DRT on the FAFSA issue, and they failed to comply with another law there to notify Congress in the proper way and at the proper time. Is that true?
Well, the notification, I think, may be a more ambiguous issue, but...
Exactly. Yeah, we had that hearing 3 weeks. So this is now 2 hearings in a row this committee has had where the Department of Education has not complied with 2 federal laws. And, oh, by the way, the increase in improper payments continues to rise. And here's the kicker. Mr. Hurt, your boss, the guy we asked to come, Mr. Runcie. You know Mr. Runcie? Mr. Hurt, do you know Mr. Runcie?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and he was your boss?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and he was asked several times to come in front of this committee and talk about this situation. Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah, and what instead of coming in front of this committee, what did Mr. Runcie decide to do? Do you know?
Mr. Runcie resigned.
Resigned, yeah. The night before, right? He's supposed to come. The night before we were going to send him a subpoena, he decided to resign. You know why he would do that, Mr. Hurt?
I can't speculate for Mr. Runcie.
How about you, Ms. Tighe? You know why he might do that?
I do not know.
Mr. Hurt, did Mr. Runcie receive any bonus payments over the last few years for his stellar job of not complying with 2 federal laws, improper payments that continue to increase and have increased over the last 3 years? Did he receive any bonus payments for his job performance?
I think the chairman referenced bonus payments. I personally don't have, I'm not involved in Mr. Runcie's bonuses.
Yeah. How about Ms. Tighe? Did he get some bonus payments?
I'm not aware of Mr. Runcie's bonus payments either. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, it's our understanding that there were several $1,000s. Last year alone, $75,000 bonus. Ms. Tighe, do you know if Mr. Runcie was at the top of the federal pay scale?
I do not know that.
Yeah, my guess is he was at the top of the federal pay scale, got a $75,000 bonus last year, and over the last 6 years, bonuses totaling $432,815 for a guy who can't comply with 2 laws, is asked to come testify in front of this committee. And instead of coming and testifying in front of this committee to answer for what took place at the Department of Education, one of the most egregious agencies in overpayments or improper payments, instead of doing all that, he just decides to resign on the spot. Man, that's amazing. No wonder the American taxpayers are fed up with our federal government and the way this place operates. I think, Mr. Chairman, we should have Mr. Runcie in here. I think we should go ahead and subpoena the guy and bring him in here to answer some of these questions. I mean, again, you just walk through it. $144 billion across government. The agency that's maybe one of the most egregious offenders of overpayments is the Department of Education. 2 laws they don't comply with. That trend is going up. The guy who's responsible is asked several times to come in front of this committee, and instead of coming in front of this committee, he up and resigns. And to add insult to injury, he's been receiving bonus payments the last 6 years that total $432,815. This is amazing. That's why we have this. This is why we have this committee, to get to the bottom of these kind of things. But Mr. Runcie should be in front of the committee. And frankly, whoever was responsible, my guess it was Mr. Duncan who was responsible ultimately, the former Secretary of Education, in allowing these bonus payments to be given to Mr. Runcie, should be in front of this committee as well. Say, why was he given this kind of bonus at taxpayer dollars when there's billions of taxpayer dollars that go unaccounted for that are under his watch? So Mr. Chairman, with that, I would yield back the balance of my time.
I thank the gentleman. Mr. Hurt, let me follow up one quick question. I mean, don't you think Mr. Runcie could have illuminated some of the questions that you've been unable to answer today? Do you think he would be the appropriate person to answer some of these questions?
Chairman Meadows, I can't speak to.
But don't you work for him?
I did.
Okay. So wouldn't he have some knowledge of improper payments?
He would have some.
It's a softball question, Mr.
Yes,
Hurt.
sir.
I'm not trying to trap you.
He would have some knowledge of improper.
And so shouldn't he have some, I guess, responsibility to come before Congress and help us understand why the record is so deplorable?
That's for Mr. Runcie to answer, not me.
No, I'm asking you. You're the sworn witness. Don't you think he could have helped?
That's for Mr. Runcie to answer,
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Mr. Runcie's been able to go out and talk to the press. Can't talk to a congressional committee with oversight responsibilities for the very fact he's allowed all kinds of billions of dollars improper payments to go out, but he can talk to the press. He can't come talk to us. That's why we need to subpoena the guy.
Well, we